Hi, I'm Amanda,
And I'm Kara.
and welcome to the Historical Society podcast. Awesome. All
Here we
right,
are again.
here we are again. So Kara and I are in different places this time. Our first time using Zoom to record a podcast slash video cast. So thank you for joining us
Yep,
in this
yep.
way. We're gonna try to make it interesting. We have a
Amanda's in St. Louis. I'm in
Yep,
Detroit.
that's right.
Yeah.
Kara's in a cool Airbnb with some
Yeah, with
cool
nice
art.
decor.
I like the little rug
There's an
thingy behind you.
abstract painting on the other wall that's really cool. It incorporates the same color scheme. It's pretty.
That's awesome. And on in my area, we have we have the little sign, and actually, it's funny.
The little
The
sign.
the giant sign.
It's
Um,
huge.
it's funny because I had to set my camera to do the mirror image so that people could actually read it. But it's weird. So if I want to fix my
Really.
hair, I have to close my eyes. Because if I try to do it, it looks like I'm using the wrong hand, and it really confuses me. So, yeah,
It's really funny.
yeah. Um, but so I found two Eiffel Towers in the house. So we have this one,
Oh yeah.
and then I found this one up in your little office.
I feel like I got the little one in Seattle somewhere, but I could be
Oh,
wrong.
it's pretty
Maybe I
cool.
got both of them there. I used to love to go like find random things at
Yeah,
thrift shops.
yeah.
Do
I
you
like
do you
them.
remember?
I'm not sure. I'm not
I
sure. I
just
think
like
you're right though. I think you got
because
them in Seattle.
I had the big. Do you remember that big wall size poster or wall hanging I had of the Eiffel Tower?
That's
I
right.
think I had that sitting next to it.
Did we get that was that at IKEA?
I was like, yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and I put it on one wall, and then I had a little small table with I think that big one on there, that big Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
So
So
cute, so
that
cute.
so cute. That brings us to France, which is kind of the subject of today's podcast. So we were going to
Yeah.
title this either France's Me Too or the French Me Too. Which one do you
W-
like?
Um, the second one, but I
Which one?
also
The
wanted
French
to.
Me Too?
Yeah, I wanted you to say that the French word or the French phrase for it, which is
Okay. All
way
right.
cooler.
So you're going to see how I'm trying to pronounce these. I've written them out phonetically
I
because I did not study French at all. The only thing I can even come
haven't
close to
either.
saying in a different language is German because I had a little bit of study in
Yeah,
that. Okay, so apologies in
go
advance.
for it. No, you got this. It's a beautiful
Balance
language.
to Paul. Balance
What does it
to
mean?
Paul. It means denounce your pig.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's yeah, so in English, we would look at it and say balance ton pork.
To put it mildly. Oh, the English language is so
It's
beautiful.
it's so beautiful. Yeah. And so
Hmm,
that's the hashtag
that's
that
cool.
the French hashtag for the Me Too movement. I think there are other
They
ones as well, but that was like the one of the first ones.
they mean business. I like
They
it.
do. Yeah, it gets to the point there. It's like, boom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before, I don't know what you were going to say just then, but before we get into it, we are going to speak about a very public trial that's happening in France right now. We're going to speak about that today, but Amanda was going to kind of start with the history,
Right. Oh,
French history.
okay.
She may have something else to start
Yeah,
with.
so I thought it would be kind of fun. So Kara and I, back in 2010, we played in an
Oh yeah,
orchestra and we went on tour, and I wanted to
wouldn't that have
share
been cool? Just real
these
quick to
photos.
say, like, how how often is it that two people get to play in the same group?
Very rare.
Like two people
Yeah.
get to be in the same. Anyway, it sucks that we're not there, but
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Do you see this?
yes,
Yes.
you're asking
Okay.
me.
I'm just making sure. Okay. So this is from 2010. That is
I
me
like
there at
it.
the Eiffel Tower. Okay.
I
All
remember
right.
that trip.
There's our younger selves 14 years ago. That's
Wait, I just still
shocking.
see the first one.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
So it didn't switch. Oh,
Not
it
yet.
says it's paused. Why is it
Oh,
paused?
I don't know.
Let me share my desktop. That's probably what the problem
Is
is.
it symbolic? It's paused in
Okay, how about now?
history. That's it.
That's you see,
Aw.
yeah.
I
All
was
right.
30. I think 29 or 30 in that picture.
We were so
20. I
young.
don't remember what year that was or what time of year it was.
Ah.
I remember that jacket. I didn't like that jacket.
Oh, I remember my jacket. I love
Coat.
that jacket. And that
That
hat,
was
I lost
cute.
that on a plane. I got it in France and then lost it on our next. Yeah, I was sad. I like that
That
little
was a
hat.
cute coat. Yeah, your coat is cute.
There's Kara
Uh,
in
so
Paris. And
adorable.
then this is the last one, the Arc de Triomphe. So
Cool.
yeah, very. So that's our little
Memory
excursion to
lane.
France.
I
um,
should clarify, I don't miss that we weren't there specifically, but it would be nice to be in the same orchestra.
yes,
And
agreed.
that's a hard thing to do and a rare thing that happens, unless people like meet in those orchestras. But
Right. All
anyway,
right. Yes. So
is that okay to
anyway, so
say
that's our
that?
little. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's
Okay.
fine. And so that is our little example of us being in France
Uh,
from a long time
that
ago.
was fun.
Yeah.
We took a lot of really cool trips, got to see a
Yeah.
lot of the world.
That's totally true.
I'm grateful
Totally
for
true.
that aspect of it. I
Yeah.
mean, there are a lot of areas of the world I would never have seen or wouldn't have seen that early in life
Yeah, for
if not
sure.
for those experiences. So cool.
All right.
And
So
Paris is beautiful. Is that like a really cool feel? Okay, I'll shut up.
it's fine. I agree
I'll
with
let you get
you.
started with the
I love
history.
Ferris. Okay, so what we were gonna do, and so obviously the name of our podcast, Herstorical, it's talking about history, herstory.
Yeah,
And our kind of theory is basically when you are born into like a history that you are unaware of. You are born into a culture that you're unaware of, and you are then influenced by all of that. And so history influences us whether we know about it or not. And so our goal in the show is to learn history, like what actually happened and then why are we where we're at? And did history cause that? And so the history of France in regards to women is rather similar. There's some differences in regards to how they got to where they are today. And I'll talk
you
about
mean
that. But
similar to the U.S.?
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So the way women were treated and also just similar types of events in the formation of um their society. So
Yeah.
um like the French history goes way back. Obviously ours is like 17 in the 1770s or the 1619s, something like that, 1600s. The French history, there's like, I guess, I don't know if it's a debate, but who was the first king of France? So it was very much a monarchy for a very long time. So this one dude was not, I want to say it was like 481. It was like
It's one
Clovis the
dude.
first. Yeah. But it wasn't technically France yet. It was this other, it was I don't know how to say it. It's like Gaul,
you say?
Gaul.
Did you say Clovis?
Clovis, Clovi, Clove, Clova,
That's not why I said it. That's
C
not
L
why I
O
care.
V I S.
It just
Why?
makes me laugh because, like, even my great grandparents had very different names than what we're used to. I had
Yeah.
one named Shirley, a man
Yeah.
named Shirley. I think you
My
did too, right?
yeah, my grandfather's middle name was Shirley. Yeah.
Another named Doris. Just very,
Right. Okay. My
it's
middle
just
name,
interesting. It's very different from the names we,
right.
coin now for.
My parents initially thought about giving me my middle name as Shirley, but then my initials would be ASS. So so they're like, we can't do that to her.
Well,
The
my
world's too
name,
hard.
my name's spelled with a C, Kara, but a lot of times people think it's with a K, which is also a common
Oh.
spelling. But I used to get my last name is Kaiser with a K, but I used to get all the time, oh, if they named you someone with a K, your initials would be
KKK.
KKK. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, awful, first of all. But secondly, my first name is spelled with a C. Thanks for
Right.
noticing.
Yeah. Okay, so Clovis, maybe.
Sorry. Okay.
They say sometimes Clovis may have been, it just depends on, I guess, when you want to say France really began. And so the other dude, his name was Hugh Capet, Capet. And so he would have been, so Clovis,
Clovis.
good old Clovis. He was born in 466 and died in 511 in Paris, the area that we know as Paris. And Hugh Capet was born in 938 and died in 996. It's
Okay.
so weird to think of those dates
It is.
considering, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a bunch of kings that happened, and then we get up to the 1700s where we've got Louis the 16th, and then we have basically the French Revolution. And when I was learning about the French Revolution, I actually probably explains. why I don't know very much, perhaps, but my my understanding of the French Revolution for the longest time was like it was like a one and done, like the American Revolution. Like it happened and it's over. But that was not what happened. There were like all these revolutions, like three revolutions. And there was a lot of turmoil when it comes to establishing a stable government style. And so you had the monarchy, the French Revolution happens, the first one, and then it becomes like a constitutional monarchy where there's more say, but people still don't have voting rights. So that's what's interesting about
All the
um,
way through.
well, some people did. So like the really rich, it was like I want to say it was like 90,000 people once this constitutional monarchy was established. Like some people could be elected and have a position
Yeah.
to have some type of say, but it was yeah, it didn't last very long. And then there was a struggle to um get rid of all of it basically. And the people wanted to have a say, but then what happened was Napoleon then became a dictator. So there were all these military conquests happening, and there was like this power vacuum, basically. There was all this chaos, and he basically seized that and then declared himself emperor, which is I just think is nuts. Like you go from a monarchy then to a dictatorship. And it doesn't free anybody. So people still don't have a voice. And he quashed basically any type of reform. And so during the revolution, the different revolutions, women started to have more of a place. They started becoming active in it, and they started to voice their concerns as women as well, wanting to play a part in what was happening. But then under Napoleon, he instituted, I guess, what was referred to as Napoleonic Code, the Napoleonic Code. And I looked up some of the key aspects of basically what it did. And this, if you know anything about US history and British history, there was something they called the laws of coverture, which basically are this. And so he limited the legal rights of women. So they were legally incapable or forbidden from entering into legal contracts or lawsuits or testifying in court. They had no property rights.
Wow.
Everything was in marriage was the husband's. They could not let's see, they could not validly accept a succession or a donation without their husband's authority. It was difficult to get a divorce. The husband controlled everything, the property, the fate of the children. And the father was always favored in divorce proceedings. And women were, of course, not allowed to vote because, well, it wasn't quite a thing yet. And then women were not allowed to hold public office either. So it was very
The
similar to the United
testifying in
States.
court piece is very weird.
Yeah. Well,
That's
in this
ridiculous.
country, women weren't guaranteed a place in a jury until then. I need to look this up. I want to say it was like 1970, but I could be wrong about that.
Let me
I
look
need
it
to
up.
find that date. Yeah, that might be a question we can answer later in the US. But so what I'm hoping to highlight here is that there are similarities to the limited rights or no rights of women in France and the United States. And this is that history. Oh, so
Um, this
yeah,
says the Civil Rights Act of 1957 gave women the right to serve on federal juries, but it wasn't until 1973 that all 50 states passed similar legislation.
there you go. Yeah.
1973.
And so in this country, women, so our type of government, we went into like a representative republic, like a democratic republic, basically. And I think we all understand how that works here in this country.
Do
In
we?
France, I don't know. I don't know. And there's this, balance of powers that we hope, remains that way, no matter who's president, I hope um
Ideally, yeah.
that there's a balance of powers that will be shared and that people take voting seriously. Okay, but in France there was this long struggle to ever arrive at something like kind of where we're at right now. There so after the French Revolution, I'm going to make sure I get this right. I wrote down some of the dates here. So the French Revolution was extremely violent. I mean, it's almost shocking. I almost feel like so what's interesting about the US during this French Revolution period is that during the American Revolution a few years earlier, the French came to the aid of the Americans. And it's part of why the Americans defeated the British, basically. And the king at that time was Louis the 16th. And if you go to Philadelphia and you go to Independence Hall, there's the building right beside Independence Hall is called Congress Hall. And on the
Hmm.
second floor is where the Senate met, where they would have their very important meetings. And the two little rooms off from their main meeting hall, there's a portrait of King Louis the 16th, and then on the other side is Marie
Cool.
Antoinette. Um,
Wow.
and so when this happened, I believe the French attempted to get the Americans involved, or the Americans considered getting involved in this fight, but I think George Washington was like, "We're not going to get involved right now."
Yeah.
um, and so it was ironic, given they wanted to also, you know, defeat the monarchy and have power like the Americans just did. But there was probably some difficulty deciding how to handle that because the French king was why the Americans won partly why um, they won the American Revolution. So, but anyway, I found that really interesting. So, French Revolution happens. Those two people are executed by guillotine. Lots of people are executed. There's like pandemonium. It just seems like it's crazy. It almost seems like anarchy. Like it was just nuts. Like people were dying. Like we think of the famous musicals or operas of that time from like representing that time. You have Les Mis, and then you have like the Scarlet Pimpernel. I got to see both of those on Broadway. That was cool. And then the opera by Poulenc, the Dialogue of the Carmelites. It's a very tragic opera
I've
about
seen that one.
all these nuns being executed by the guillotine. So
That
that
one's
one,
dark.
yeah. So that one's kind of like more of a taste of that really the pandemonium of that era. And so,
Wow.
from there, like I was saying, from that craziness, then Napoleon seizes on top of that. And then he institutes those codes. And he, according to, so a lot of my information I got from a subscription to Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica.
I want if my parents don't want them, I want to get a hold of the ones we had when I was a kid. Just like put
Yeah,
them on the shelf.
yeah,
Those are cool.
yeah, very cool.
I loved
Um,
looking through those as a kid.
Me too. My grandma had a set, and my parents bought a set for me at some point.
I have a question for you about the Napoleonic Code.
Yes.
And maybe you don't know the answer and we can follow up with it later. But do you know what prompted him to write this in the law? Like, why did he so specifically want to kind of tamp women down? Like, why did he want to put all these restrictions on women's rights?
Well,
Do you
I
know the
don't
answer?
know.
Or
I
we
don't
can look
know.
it up.
Yeah, we might need to look that up. I mean, it wasn't just women. Like he wanted to
Oh,
institute codes about everything. Like
okay,
he
okay.
wanted to control every aspect of society. And actually he made a choice to try to join forces with the Catholic Church, but he apparently was very skeptical of religion or the Catholic Church, but was using it as a way of controlling people. And so the Catholic Church obviously would have had a similar feel about women um at the time.
I,
So,
I just pulled
yeah.
this up from history.com. This says the Napoleonic Code made the authority of men over their families stronger, deprived women of individual rights, and reduced the rights of illegitimate children. All male citizens were also granted equal rights under the law and right to religious dissent, but colonial slavery was reintroduced. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to read more. I want to read more about that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And when we go to our celebration of women at the end, we're going to talk about a woman of this time period who was pushing for women's rights, but also was executed. So,
I
yeah.
mean, for me it speaks to the how so many of cultures are just rooted in these patriarchal concepts.
Right.
And I've always been the type of person that asks why, and then why about the why, and the why about the why about the why. Like I just
Right.
want to know all the answers. So I don't fully understand why women were just not afforded rights. Like where did that come from?
Right. Well, I think we'll attempt to answer that in hopefully the next
I mean,
episode.
yeah, it's kind of like what this whole podcast is about. But when
Yeah.
you really sit and think about it, it's like, why not just give people, human beings, equal rights?
Right.
It just seems like the most simple. Um,
Seems like a no-brainer.
well, I mean, if we're all born equal, we're all born into this world with dignity as human beings. I don't understand what makes us all so different.
Right.
What needs to make us all so different?
Right. I mean, it's
Uh, it's learned. It's
the
cultural.
desire. Yeah, it's the desire for control and domination and power. Where does that come from?
I
Why is that
mean,
accepted?
It's always about perspective, right? But like, do you see a lot of women out here demanding power, full control? I mean,
It's
again,
rare.
it's all perspective, but
Yeah.
you don't see that.
Yeah. I mean, there have been authoritarian leaders that have been women, a
Sure.
few, but
By and large, I'm just saying, by and
yeah,
large, it seems to
right.
be a fight for just equal
Right.
rights.
I know. Yeah. Well,
Not
we're going to see that.
domination, equal rights.
I know. That's where we're at right now, and that's where we should be. I think
But
that is the
it's but
proper
it's
place.
it's seen as this desire to like overtake everyone.
Right. It's perceived when women say we want equal rights, it's perceived we're saying we want to dominate men. But we're just
But
saying,
that's
hey,
not
just treat us equally.
absolutely not the
Because
case.
part of the reason is because in some people's minds, that means they have to give up something. They have to relinquish control and power. Um, so I don't know.
I guess that's hard.
Yeah. Oh well.
Change is
Okay.
hard.
Yeah. Okay. So, after Napoleon, they went back to a constitutional monarchy, and then they went back to some kind of republic, and then another empire, and then another republic. And at this point, I think they're in what's called the Fifth Republic. And I took this from the EU's website to describe kind of what France is. France is a unitary state organized on a decentralized basis under the 1958 Constitution. France is a republican state and a parliamentary democracy, often qualified as semi-presidential. So that's a blurb about what France is right now. And there was
Okay.
also a constitutional reform in 2008 to rebalance the relationship between the parliament and the government in favor of the former, the government. Um, Okay, so that's a little gist about France. I think that's all we were going to talk about history wise. So that was kind of a
Yeah.
long discussion of history.
How long did that go?
That was like 28 minutes. It's kind of shocking.
That's
So
okay.
okay. So
Gotta get on it. Let's
that's
go.
right. We got to get on it. So now what we're going to do is, with all of this in mind, with all of the way women have, oh, I forgot. So women in France, so in the United States, women got the right to vote in 1920. In France, it was 1944. So it was later.
Say that again because I'm
Yeah, 1920
did you
US,
US, okay.
France 1944.
Okay.
And actually there were other points here. Let me make sure I get to it. Here we go. Um Similarly to the United States, marital rape was not criminalized until 1994 in
In
France. In France. And I think here it's
it was 1993.
1990 or 1993. It was in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what else. They made a statute in 1998 in France that promotes equal access by women and men to elected office and positions. Um, yeah, so it's similar in many ways to um, the rights and laws being passed to promote equal access for women. It was similar in both countries. How close to now that is, you know. And for France, it's 1944. Our parents.
Yeah.
My dad was born 4 years later, so it's like really close to our generation. And so we say all of this because this is the culture. This is what has created our current culture, this history.
Yep.
All right. And so now, Kara, we're going to talk about a horrible and
Oh,
shocking case in France.
yeah. So there's maybe a lot of you have seen this in the news. There's a case currently being litigated in France right now, based around the offenses of Dominique Pellico. He's a 71-year-old man, married man. He's in. I think she's in divorce proceedings now, or has already completed them. I'm not sure, but she's divorcing him. Married for I think 50 years. Um, Seemingly normal, average guy. Worked a normal job, married with kids. Um, he comes home one day and talks to his wife and says, "Hey, I did something silly." Those were his words. "I did something silly." And she's like, "Okay, well, what is it?" He said he'd been caught by police filming up women's skirts in a supermarket. And she thought, okay, I've been married to this guy for 50 years. I'm going to forgive him. But she says, it happens again, I'm gone. And when the police are looking through his phone, like, for evidence, they find endless files on his wife, seemingly drugged, being raped by random men. Many, many, many men. So basically, it's 50 plus men that are on trial now for rape, for raping Dominique Pellico's wife, Giselle, over the course of over a decade, I believe. So she was she had no idea what was going on. He was drugging her with sleeping pills all this time. She thought she was struggling with she was struggling with these memory lapses. She had no idea what was going on. She thought her health was declining. She thought she was developing Alzheimer's. She mentioned these things to him during the course of this time when she was unaware of what was happening. And he would say, "Oh, yeah, well, let's go get you checked out." So the whole time he knows exactly what he's doing. He had been on this online forum where men could get on, and I guess they had fantasies of raping helpless, unconscious women. And he would basically allow them that opportunity. So it's horribly disgusting. The men involved in this range from age 26 to 73. They're from all walks of life: firefighters, there's a nurse, trade workers, retirees, journalists, a prison guard,
People who
um,
were, and also people who were married and single.
the
So the
co-accused.
whole, everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's hard to like process into your mind. But there are 50 accused. 35 have decided to plead not guilty,
Wow.
claiming to investigators that they're the victims,
Wow.
that they thought they were participating in some sort of game, not knowing that the woman was drugged, and or she knew, and it was a sex game, and somehow they just got duped into it,
Wow.
which is ridiculous. She has denied that completely and obviously. Um, some said, yeah, let's see. One of the men admitted to rape and admitted to guilt, and he actually raped her, Giselle, on the day of his daughter's birth.
Oh,
How disgusting is that? I'm sorry,
what?
but he did admit that he did it. He admit that he did it, and he deserved to face consequence for it.
All right.
But it's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
So some admitted to follow in Pellico's methods and drug their own wives,
Wow.
and start the same game with their wives. And what gets me about this is many of the men's lawyers, so they've all got lawyers, are using the defense that the men weren't strong enough to say no, and just went along with it.
Wow.
So this is
Wow.
interesting, and it's very interesting, right, and ironic, because this is the same defense tactic that's often used against women who, let's say, freeze when they're being raped, which is a natural physiological response: fight, flight, or freeze. And they're not able to either physically fight or say no because they're frozen. Um, but to use it in both instances is like, are we just throwing
Spaghetti at the wall. See what sticks.
stuff at the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Stuff.
infuriating. That book we've mentioned before, Credible.
It's back there.
Do you have it?
Yeah. It's hard to see, but it's right there. Credible.
Plug it again.
Credible by Deborah Turkheimer.
Yeah, she's a professor at the Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. It's an amazing book. If you haven't read it, read it. But she talks about in that book how we shouldn't be necessarily worried about the defenses that defense attorneys use necessarily, because they're ridiculous. But we should be more concerned with why is our society buying it? Why is our society taking it as rational argument? And that's what needs to change.
Right.
I totally agree. She talks about the culture we live in,
Right.
essentially. That needs to change. So, I mean, literally, we have these men on video doing this, and they're like, well, I didn't know. I thought it was just a game. Well, what kind of game is that? It's it's heinous.
Right.
Anyway, I just think it's I don't know if interesting is the right word, to see the defenses that some of these men are mounting and others are not.
Right.
Um, Moreover, I think just from a personal perspective, I don't understand what the appeal is of raping someone who's helpless, unconscious, cannot consent, cannot engage.
Right.
I don't understand that. That's a problem. That's a cultural, deep cultural problem.
Right.
Beyond that, but
It's a
that's where we're at.
cultural evil and disease.
It's gross.
Yeah.
There's also, I thought this was horrible and interesting, I guess, to mention that's real, but he had nude pictures of his daughter, his own daughter, on his computer, titled "Around My Daughter Naked."
Wow.
And she found out about it during the course of one of the trial hearings, um, and had to leave the courtroom.
Yeah.
She returned, but it's just like that kind of depravity. I don't understand.
Right.
It makes me
Um,
sick.
yeah.
And beyond that, to think about, this is her father, and this was Giselle's husband, someone that they've trusted their entire lives.
And
To to
didn't really suspect anything,
No,
really. So, yeah. Um,
which is equally awful. I mean, people who have loved ones or friends or family who are accused of these things, I can empathize on some level why they wouldn't understand, because they're seeing a vastly different side of someone.
right. Yeah.
But this stuff is so prolific.
Yeah. And it's
Uh,
scary. I mean, it's a scary thing to know
it's
that
terrifying.
the people we think we know, or the people that we see this wonderful side, have this other side, this dangerous side, this evil side, that they're doing these terrible, horrible things, and that those two things coexist in that one person. And that's a difficult
Yeah.
thing to accept, but that's, I mean,
Yep.
that's the reality that we
The
face.
reality is human nature.
Yeah.
I mean, in some people, there's
So,
a
um,
spectrum of evil.
right. And
Um,
so,
I think
okay.
it's a. I do think it's also important to note that Dominique Pellico has admitted he is a rapist and he needs help and he's seeking forgiveness. So he's not denying that he's done it.
Right.
I think there's just way too much evidence at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so we were gonna the next thing we were gonna do was we were gonna show a very short video of a French news organization, France 24, and it was we were gonna they interview some women out in the public. So what this case has done basically, and it's partly because of Giselle Pellico's choice, she decided that this trial should be public, not a private thing. And on top of that, she also, in the trial, she wanted the videos, the very graphic, disturbing videos, to be shown. And she would be in
Yeah.
those videos being raped, and that is being shown in the court cases. And so
I can't
she
even
talks
imagine
about, I know, she talks
the,
about, she
the
said that
trauma she must have.
she considered suicide when she first understood what had happened to her.
Of
And
course,
how,
that's
you know,
horrendous.
yeah,
It
it's
What it does to your
horrid.
psyche is hard to explain.
Yeah, I really feel for her. And so her bravery has sparked protests in French cities. And we're going to talk about that as well. But we're going to, I guess, this is a good time, you think, to share that video?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to attempt to do this. I have
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm not
no,
trying
go
to.
ahead.
I keep wanting to. No,
Oh
I was
no,
just
no.
apologizing because I
Oh, you
keep
don't need to
talking
apologize
over you.
because yeah, this
It's a
is
little hard with
a dual effort.
the 800 miles or however long far apart.
We are, yeah.
The
And the delay that can happen.
delay.
The delay. My southern drawl. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try to
Well done.
share. Thank you. Okay. Here we go. Share this. And let me find this video. It's
Ooh,
here.
pretty.
All right. So this is are you seeing my screen, Kara?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So this is the organization, France 24 news organization. It doesn't say, that just says by news wires. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but here's the video. and enlarge it.
Video by France 24. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here we go.
I'm not hearing sound.
Okay. Thank you. Oh,
Welcome.
thank you for doing that. I need to make sure that this one thing is turned on and it maybe didn't get turned on. Um, let me, okay, let me look at this really quickly. Sorry about this. Nope, that's not it. Um, let me stop share. And then I need to make sure that there was something I turned on. Where was it? Um, yeah, how did I do that? Oh, I know, it's here, it's right here. Okay, it's on the screen. Okay, I'm gonna try this again. I apologize. This is my first time trying to do this. Okay, can you see it now?
I can see it, yes.
What are you seeing on my screen?
I see the not all men, but all women.
Okay, now let me know if you hear this because then we know it's working. Let me scoot this back.
Okay.
Victims, we believe.
Do you hear that?
Yep, it's on.
Okay, sweet. All right. Thank you.
Victims, we believe you. The words ring out across Place de la République as hundreds gather in support of Gisèle Pellicot and all the rape victims in France. The 71-year-old has become a symbol of the country's fight against sexual violence as her horrific ordeal came to light earlier this month.
Since I learned about this scandal, I feel like vomiting all the time. I find it absolutely despicable what she went through. I'm completely terrified because if it can happen in such an intimate circle for years and no one realizes it, it's just completely terrifying.
I think this story really illustrates the extent to which women are not heard and how they are not defended. It feels like people are only just discovering what rape is and that it happens every day, when it's actually always been like that.
Gisèle Pellicot's trial began on the 2nd of September, a public hearing as per her request. She has also allowed the court to exhibit explicit videos of the crimes recorded by perpetrator and ex-husband Dominique Pellicot. Decisions, she says, were in solidarity with other victims, as much of the sexual violence committed is unreported and often goes unpunished, despite the several waves of the Me Too reckoning in France.
Yeah, it's very important for us to be there because we need to talk about the rape culture and the fact that after 7 years of Me Too, we already know that there is not a special type of victim, but nowadays we are like collectively realizing that there is not a special type of rapist.
Dominique Pellicot is expected to testify on Monday. He and 50 other defendants face up to 20 years in prison if convicted.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. Like,
It hit you, right?
yeah, like seeing sorry. I think it's seeing the women say things that are just so true.
Yeah.
And it's powerful to have, women and men, but whew,
Yeah.
just get up and say, the victims, we believe you. And then, say there's no perfect victim and there's no specific perpetrator. These things are just happening all the time. And I think for me, what gets me is like seeing people rally together in defense of the marginalized victims who have been burdened by this for so long and isolated in their isolation, just
Right.
dealing with this gigantic culturally pervasive issue with little to no support. So it's very yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain what that makes me feel. I didn't expect to get emotional about it.
Yeah. It's okay. I mean, the first time I watched that, I got choked up. Because it was that,
It feels like
what
they're
there's,
speaking truth,
yeah,
finally.
yeah. And to see it coming from another country, the exact same thing, exact same words that we've all been saying. Um, you know, and for
Yeah.
me, like the first woman feeling like you want to vomit, like that's,
Ooh. Yeah.
you know, um,
Yeah. It also
yeah,
feels like finally being heard. I mean, I've always said these crimes are not isolated. Like when a woman talks about her experience, it feels like the same story, a new victim.
right.
Like the things that victims say, or victims advocates say, even they just resonate so deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I wanted to,
Oof,
yeah, I mean, you basically
that
did
was
what
powerful.
it is. I just felt like that was such a, when I first saw that video, I was like, oh, we have to play that. Um,
I'm glad you
so
played
each of
it.
those women, you know, they really highlighted something. And I think you touched on that. And the last
Yeah.
woman spoke about that perception of, you know, having to have a perfect rape victim. And then you can believe her. You know, she's running in the park and she's violently attacked. Oh, well, okay, maybe we'll believe her this time. Um, but then the concept of having the perfect rapist, right? It has to be
Yeah,
this, you know, hooded figure that's, I don't know. I don't know exactly what, but this story is showcasing that, you know, there's no such thing as a perfect victim. It can happen to any woman, any person, and there's no such thing as the perfect rapist. And the term that I've seen used is Mr. Everyman.
I like that.
Everyman. Yeah,
I
and
mean,
it's
look at these people who are being accused, the men on
right,
trial.
right,
I mean, literally the one I mentioned about having raped her in this in this fashion the day his daughter's being born.
right. Yeah,
And again, he did admit guilt, but it's kind of like these are just average, normal
seemingly
men.
normal. Yeah, and some of
A
the
nurse,
I know,
journal. I mean, these people in walks of life that you would hope to trust.
right, right. Um, some of the signs that women are carrying around, and one of the women in the France 24 article, and also other articles we've seen, they are touched that it's not just women protesting, that it's men and it's everybody coming out, which is great, and I'm sure very encouraging for them.
Yeah,
Some of the signs they're carrying: we are all Giselle, and the other one is not all men but always a man. And I that last one brings me to a series of statistics that I read. Sorry, still struggling with that
that's
word.
right. Can we explain that just a little bit? A rapist, it's not all men, but it's always a man.
Yeah, and
It's
the
sort of a
statistic for that,
generalization, but largely it is men who rape.
right? And
Largely.
so the I'm drawing this from an article. Let me go here. I This is from Reuters. The so the This report, so it's a government report from France, and this is also mentioned in a USA Today article as well. But the statistics are that women make up 89% of rape victims in France, and 96% of the perpetrators are men. And so that slogan, not all men, but always a man. So it's only 4% when it's not. So that's why that slogan is very fitting. Um, and then similar to the United States, so if you're curious about the statistics for the United States, we recommend going to the RAINN.org website, RAINN.org. And we talk exclusively about that in episode 1 for statistics for the United States. In France, this says that out of 35,000 rapes recorded in just a year, only 10% were prosecuted and fewer than 5% resulted in a conviction. And then the vast majority of rapes or attempted rape victims never file a complaint. And that rate is 90%. Only 10% of rape victims or attempted rape victims were even report. And so the number of 35,000 is only 10% of
That's
the
insane.
total, the estimated total of rape victims in a year in France. Um, so Yeah. So I wanted to share that as well, just the statistics there that coming from France. Um, yeah,
I would be
this is
curious to talk to Giselle. Just because you have to assume that when coming forward with something like this is not easy and it's not fun, and you often experience people who don't believe you, even in the face of massive evidence. I would be very curious what she's experienced on that other end.
Right. Maybe one day she'll talk
Um,
about it
I hope so.
more.
Thankfully, there's massive support for her,
Yeah.
which is deserved,
Right.
but it can't be unsaid. I feel like that there is an other side. There's always an other side to this.
Right.
Um, it's not, you don't win. You don't win by coming forward. You do
Right.
so for the better of the culture,
Right.
um, betterment of the culture. Is that
Yeah.
a word?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in the articles that we've read, women are calling her an icon because she's like, a heroine. She's doing something that she's a shero. We use that term in one of our episodes. She's doing something that's highlighting this issue, and it's at her own expense. Something
I mean,
horrible
yeah,
happened
that's
to
what
her, and yet she's still doing this, and it's hurting her, I'm sure. Having, like,
yeah,
she talked about feeling extreme shame and just all of this because she's choosing to make one of the most horrific things that can happen to a woman, and she's choosing to make it extremely public.
that's what I keep wanting to reiterate is how detrimental it can be to come forward. I mean, it's terrifying, first of all, and then it just it's hugely emotionally taxing on a person.
Right. And
Um,
I mean, that's why the statistics are only 10% of people come forward. Only 10% of
yeah,
women come forward. And that's
and
why they sit there.
to have I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this or not. Recently, I was hearing from a friend who heard from a male colleague that they were finally sort of grasping what it was like to be a woman, to have something happen. This person was talking about having had a teacher in their life that was emotionally abusive to them, and they were kind of just like putting that together, um, and how hard that was for them. But then they were like, to have your person, your physical person, be violated on that level is a whole nother level of abuse, a
Right.
whole nother level of emotional like processing.
Right.
And it was like it was occurring to this person what that must be like.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's just, if you can for a moment put yourself in that position, it's so much worse. It destroys your psyche
Right.
until you're able to heal from it, which
And
can
then,
be extremely hard
right.
and constant. It's a constant thing.
Right.
It's a daily, constant battle to heal yourself
Right.
because it changes your worldview. It shifts your whole worldview on its head.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Because while I think it's amazing that she's been called an icon, and she is, absolutely what she's doing is amazing, and the support she's getting is so well deserved. Um, but I don't want to leave out the difficult side of it.
Yeah.
So
And, I want to highlight that um, culturally women have not been believed. That's just
yep.
the way it's been. But I want to highlight the statistic that exists that we talked about in, I believe, episode 1 and episode 2, that when women come forward, the rate that they are coming forward and that it's a false allegation that they're lying sits at 2 to 8%. That's it. And the analogy I always like to use when I think about that to really make sense of that statistic is, if you are offered a plane ride and you can choose from plane A or plane B. Plane A, you have a 2 to 8% chance of surviving, or plane B, you have a 92 to 98% chance of surviving. You're going to choose the plane you're most likely to survive if you have to get on the plane. And so it's
Yep.
the same scenario. So when you choose plane B, where you're going to survive, 92 to 98% chance of survival, that is you believing that woman. That's the same rate. And so
The
our
victim,
culture
yeah.
has consistently chosen the plane that goes down, the 2 to 8%, thinking that that woman is lying, but actually it's not. That's not the right way of choosing. statistically
Or
or
even if
morally.
someone, yeah, even if someone's not believing specifically that someone's lying, you often hear these events being downplayed. Or, oh, it
Mhm.
must not be that. It must be a misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding. Yeah.
That's a more gentle way of not believing.
Right.
Um, but it all goes to the same place. It all benefits the perpetrators.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we wanted to bring to light this moment in time that what's happening in France because it speaks to all women everywhere, and this is happening everywhere. Um, Now we are going to go to something hopefully a little more lighthearted, right?
Yeah,
This
I
is a good
think
time,
so.
you think?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to put on our party hats.
I do this for you.
I know. I'm a weird one.
You're not weird. You just
Goofy?
like the whimsical side of life.
I'm whimsical. Whimsical. So we are going to take our segment here. It was difficult for us to pick just one woman from the past and one woman from the present, because I feel like we're not going to have a bunch of episodes that focus on French women, and I don't study French women or French history very often, and we
Yeah.
discovered so many extraordinary women in France, and so we're going to take less time to do this because there are a bunch of women, but we want to highlight them. So in honor of celebrating, I'm going to do the party blowing, the the noise maker. That didn't sound right.
That is so on brand for you.
Oh no.
You do that all the time.
Okay. Just shouldn't
Okay.
talk. All right.
No.
We're out. Okay. All right.
Okay. Oh
Sorry
my
about that. Faux pas.
God.
Okay. All right, so I had to look up how to say these women's names, and I hope I say them somewhere close to properly. Sorry in
I think you're doing a
advance.
great job.
Okay, so the first woman, let me get my notes here together, is Christine Duposa. She was born in Venice, so I think there's also an Italian way of saying this, but born in Venice, but is considered
That's my party hat.
French, prolific French poet, um, and author from, drumroll, born in 1364 and died in 1430. So she didn't live very long, but well, actually longer than some people of that time period. Diverse writings included numerous poems of courtly love, a biography of Charles V of France, and several works championing women. So that's the thing. So she she is considered the first feminist philosopher. So that's why we're highlighting her. And she challenged the prevailing attitudes towards women with a bold call for female education. So women, obviously, during this time frame, were. Are you laughing at me?
I can't. I'm trying. It's not that. It's what you said a minute ago.
Sorry. Yeah. Oopsies. Okay.
I'm sorry. I love
It's
it.
okay. I like your joy. It's beautiful. Okay. So she was considered the first feminist philosopher, and of that time period she wanted to see women have the ability to be educated, and so that's kind of what she's known for. She also wrote a book, the Book of the City of Ladies, in which she wrote about women known for their heroism and virtue.
Cool.
That was kind of, yeah, highlighting women, like kind of like what we're doing right now. So that's her.
Yeah.
The next woman, Olympe de Gouges. Hope I said that right.
Yeah.
In
Well, you're not
English,
French. You're doing
I'm
well.
not. In English, I would want to say Olympe de Georges. That's
That's not it.
right. That's like an American trying to say something in French, and apparently that's not it. So, okay. So she was born 1948 in France and died in 19. And sorry, she's not a vampire. She didn't live 200 years. Okay, 1748 and died in 1793. So she did not live very long. She was a French social reformer and writer who challenged conventional views on a number of matters, especially the role of women as citizens. Many consider her among the world's first feminists. Um, She became active in political causes and took up social issues that ranged from road improvement to divorce, maternity hospitals, abolitionism, and the rights of orphan children and of unmarried mothers. And she wrote prolifically in defense of her ideas. Um, Something that was interesting, I feel like she's sort of similar to somebody that we will talk about later on in American history. Um, we actually already highlighted her. I'm blocking on her first name. What is her first name? Something
Uh,
Caddy Stanton. Elizabeth Caddy
uh,
Stanton. That's her name.
there you go.
She's from the Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention. She wrote a document called
What's
the Declaration of Sentiments, which was supposed to be a play on the Declaration of Independence for women. And so this woman, Olympe de Gouges,
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
she wrote the Declaration of Rights of Women and Citizen. And because after the French Revolution, there was the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. And it's implied it's a male citizen. And so hers is about women. And so unfortunately for her, like many people of that time period, she chose kind of the wrong political side because the political factions, they became very violent towards one another during the French Revolution. And she was executed and died via the guillotine on 1793. So that was her. And then the other woman from the past in France that we were going to talk about, someone closer to our present time, Simone de Beauvoir. She was born in 1908 in Paris and died in 1986. And she was a French writer and
Um,
feminist. Oh, you're gonna say
do,
something?
do you pronounce it guillotine? That's how I've always pronounced it.
Guillotine. What did I say? Guillotine?
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's fine. You've said it a lot, so I just wanted to
Guillotine. Guillotine. Oh gosh, that's so
guillotine.
funny.
Guillotine. Yeah.
Guillotine. I do say guillotine. Oh my god.
That's your close to
That's
West
my
Virginia-ness.
that's right. That's my country coming out.
That's how the people in the
Country.
sticks say it.
That's right. That's how we say it, the sticks.
Guillotine.
The guillotine. They got guillotine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So thank you for saying that. People listen, they're like, ooh, she country. That country run deep in her.
It runs deep.
Country in the blood. Running through her veins. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Simone de Beauvoir.
Yeah.
French writer, feminist, member of the Intellectual Fellowship of Philosopher Writers who have given a literary transcription to the themes of existentialism. She was really known for, in kind of the feminist circle, for writing a book called The Second Sex. And it was, that was written in 1949. And what I found interesting, a part of it was translated into English in 1953. This is, I'm taking this from Britannica in 1953. I swear I read another date that said 1959, so I'm curious about that. But it wasn't until 2009 that the entire book was available in English. So I have not read that book, but I would like to. Anyway, she was a woman considered of formidable courage and integrity, and whose life supported her thesis. And this is from Britannica again. The basic options of an individual must be made on the premises of an equal vocation for a man and a woman, founded on a common structure of their being, independent of their sexuality. So she was very much about equality of the genders. So that is those are the women from the past from France that we wanted to celebrate, and there were many, but we were trying to keep it sort of limited. Kara, do
I
you
have
want to talk
one.
about one from the present?
Yeah. There's a woman named Anne Boystar, and she started an agency. Do you want to try to say it? The balance,
Oh yeah,
balance for me, and I'll say what it means in
balance
English.
toll, and I don't know how to say
Agency.
agency in France. We're gonna say agency.
Yeah. And so it means
Agency.
out. It means out your agency is what it stands for. It was an Instagram account. So it was an anonymous Instagram account that shared stories of sexual harassment and toxic management in a French ad agency. The account was created by a copywriter in the fall of 2020 to ask if there was a place where female ad copywriters felt comfortable. In 2 days, the account had 10,000 followers, and a month later, it had almost 30,000. So,
Very cool.
just speaks to a culture that doesn't allow people to speak about this stuff.
Right.
People are, women are exhausted by it and need an outlet, need things to change.
Right.
So,
So the next woman we were going to highlight is someone who is part of an organization similar to that in France. Her name is Eliza Laborie, and I'm going to attempt to say this in French. Usi la féminisme. Usi la féminisme.
okay.
Hopefully that's right. In English, it's Dare to be Feminist. So that's an organization. You can look that up. It's unfortunately, I don't think there's any English translation. So maybe we'll have some French listeners and they'll, I don't know,
There we go.
talk about
I
it.
was going to
But
say that the Instagram account that I spoke about a month later having 30,000 followers, it now has 248,000.
wow. And I
So,
think this organization has about 89,000 followers. So the
cool.
spokesperson, Eliza Laborie, I don't actually know much about her. I had trouble finding anything about her, but she's right now the spokesperson for this organization. I don't know the spokesperson, but one of them. And she appears also in France 24. There's a interview that she does on France 24. The interview is entitled Domestic Abuse. Over half of sexual violence happens in relationships. And she gave this interview September 23rd of this month. So if you want to look up that interview, it's about a 10-minute interview. It's on France 24, and that will be in English. I watched part of it. So I wanted to highlight her because she's also part of another organization for women in France, highlighting these issues. The next woman that we were going to highlight is Lorraine Bestida. Hope I said that right. And so what I have about her, I was going to talk a little bit about that organization.
Before you go on,
Osez la Féministe. I gotta see how to say it again. Osez la Féminisme. It was founded in 2009 to highlight violence against women. And it was created April 5th, 2009. And they chose the name Dare to be Feminist, Dare Feminism. But I think in English I'm doing it. This is a Google translation of their site, Dare to be Feminist. And they're using methods of activism, launching a campaign against rape. Shame must change camp. So the shame must go on the side of the perpetrators, no longer on women. That's one of their campaigns that they're launching. They have a strong social network mobilization. And they have their Facebook page has over 100,000 people already. So that was a little bit about that.
when did it start?
2009. This particular organization.
Okay.
Let me go. My other pictures I had selected. I forgot to put them in my album. Let me go to my other photos. Okay, here it is. All right. So that Lauren Bestida, she and the women we're talking about now, they're still alive. The last two women and the next one, they're actually quite young. They're close to Kara and our age. Our age is like the 40s, 30s kind of group. Lorraine is a French journalist who has previously been the editor-in-chief of the French Ella. You know the magazine ELLE? How do we say that in the US? Is it
I
Ella?
thought it was L.
L?
I thought it was L.
Thank you. L. So L, she was a former editor-in-chief of that
Ella,
magazine in
Ella,
France.
Ella.
Yeah, that's how I want to say it. And she's a columnist on the famous French television show, The Grand Journal, Le Grand Journal. She currently hosts. Okay, this is kind of her big thing. She currently hosts the feminist podcast, and I had to figure out how to say this. La Poudre, something. It means the powder, and I don't know. I'm wondering if is that a reference to gunpowder? Is that a reference to female, like the face powder?
Right, that's where I went. That's where I went with it.
Face powder.
Second one,
okay.
Yeah.
So she's the host for that, and it's France's top independent podcast. and she interviews inspiring women from diverse backgrounds. So that was kind of exciting. So she's,
Cool.
yeah, and she's also written a book. She co-authored with Jeanine Damas. It's called In Paris, 20 Women on Life in the City of Light. And I think she's written other things as well. There are multiple interviews you can find of her speaking in English, very well spoken.
Cool.
Okay, and then the last person we were going to highlight today, we were on our final woman, Manon Garcia. That's my attempt at saying her name. It looks like Garcia, but she's from France. A little bit about her. She's currently junior professor of practical philosophy at Freie Universität in Berlin.
Yeah.
Let's see. Her primary research is in political philosophy, feminist philosophy, and moral philosophy. And let's see. Her first book, which is actually, I have not read this yet, but I have it sitting here with me because I bought it a couple weeks ago and I didn't know we would talk about her. It's called How Patriarchy Shapes Women's Lives. We Are Not Born Submissive. So this is her book. I've heard really great things about it, so I bought it. I can't say it's good yet because I haven't read it. She also has written a second book called The Joy of Consent, A Philosophy of Good Sex. And these originally, I believe, were published in French, but now there's this English version. The printer
cool.
is Princeton University Press, so great publishing company. Let's see. She was born in France,
cool.
and she's went to school in France. She got her PhD there. She has been a fellow in residence at Harvard and a fellow at the University of Chicago and a junior fellow at the Harvard Society of Fellows. And she was an assistant professor of philosophy at Yale. So she's very distinguished. We wanted to highlight her though, because she's speaking about feminism and the support of women and helping us understand this very thing, how patriarchy shapes women's lives. So yay. All these extraordinary women from France.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
there were so many to choose from.
I know it was.
I didn't know you were going to do that many.
I know. Sorry. Oh no, I gotta close my eyes to do my hair.
Rude.
So I don't see. Okay.
You were like, just find one. I'm like,
I know normally we do just one from the past, one for the present, but it was so hard to choose. I wanted to make sure that I know. Rude.
Rude.
That's something we say. Rude. Yeah. But anyway,
RDE.
Rude. Yeah. That's the country way of saying rude. Yeah. Okay. So we've come to the end of the episode. As always, if you have questions, comments, just check our social media pages. You can always leave us comments. Well, at some point I'd like to do like a poll for like things that our listeners are interested in that they would like us to cover as well. But we have several other episodes planned. We're a little bit behind in our recording. So we were recording this the day before it launches. I pray that I will be able to get all this edited and ready to go in time. But
I bet you will. You're good.
I hope. Thank you. Appreciate your confidence. Yeah. And the sun, I got the sun glare today.
That's lovely.
I have a glow.
It's beautiful here.
Glowing.
There's like no cloud in the sky. Sunny.
Yeah, it's really nice here too.
Let's see what the temperature is. 78. It's a little warm.
Yeah, it's 76 here.
No.
Oh, yeah.
A little warmer than I want, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And Kara, we will FaceTime after this so we can keep chatting.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.